Mr. Collin Haynes.
Hey, how you doing?
I am fine. Welcome to CWS as it is. How are you, my brother?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Doing
Awesome.
well.
I know
Is
you're very busy where you are, and
yeah.
take this time off to come and do this is really impressive and an honor. But briefly, tell us who is Colin Haynes and why is he involved with youths?
Thank you very much, Selvin, and thank you very much for being on the show. Originally, I'm from Linden, Guyana, born and raised. I did a lot of my well, I did most of my nursery education and also secondary education in Linden before I migrated to the States. And over the years, while I left Guyana, the drive to return back home was still there. You know, seeing the different injustices that um, was there in our society, it's prompted me to continue having an active role in Guyana. And so throughout my school years, I studied, I have a bachelor's in biochemistry and a bachelor's in international relations. And also I went further and had a master in public health, just to bridge the two, which is the medical background along with the diplomacy aspect to get a better understanding of countries and also the region, particularly Latin America, and how I can use my health background to better fight these issues. So over the last maybe 10 years, I've been actively involved in fighting against social injustices, whether it's international or local. And so I am happy to be at a juncture where I could also now finally get an opportunity to hone into the area that I've always wanted to make an impression and to see improve.
Mhm.
And that's the social, economic, and political aspects of our country, particularly Guyana, our region, but also Guyana as a whole as well.
You,
It's
you,
always
you
great.
have a master's in public health. What is it
Yes.
about public health that really appeals to you?
The old saying from you hear your grandmother used to say, prevention is better than cure. And public health is the science of prevention. Now, there's been a war over the years as to, treatment, which is the medical aspect, and public health being the more preventive piece. And so I think the two of them, they shouldn't be warring, but they should actually come together. They should work in sync because they are ways in which we can have our people, prevent some basic things like, like diabetes, like obesity, and those things can be prevented through lifestyle. Some cancers and so forth can be prevented through lifestyle. And at the same time, prevention doesn't always cut it. Eating your vegetables doesn't always cut it, but also there is the treatment piece that comes in and sort of complements it. Because for instance, some cancers, you just can't tell people eat their vegetables; they're gonna get it regardless. But how they maximize their chances of not getting it? And so that's why I like public health because of the prevention aspect. Public health really focuses on the prevention. It's the science of prevention, how we can come together, not only, developed countries, but also developing countries as well.
Let's take those two factors you mentioned, the prevention and the cure. We're talking
Hmm.
about youth development this afternoon.
Yeah.
How do you see prevention factoring into your efforts with sustainable youth development? And on the other hand, how do you see, what do you think is the cure or can be a cure for some of what you have seen on the ground or you're witnessing on the ground? Did I lose you, Colin?
Here.
Hi.
Yeah.
Did
You
you
hear
did you
me?
hear my question? Because I think
Yeah,
we lost.
I heard your questions. Yeah, I
Oh,
heard your questions.
sorry.
Yeah. First, two very good questions. To tackle the first question, I think that looking across our young people, there is some issues that are still rampant in society. A lot of drug abuse. You have, obesity is definitely a problem. You have, also high blood pressure. You have domestic abuse. These are all real issues, and especially in Guyana, suicide. Now, we're pretty much up there as the suicide capital of the world. These are issues where together we could work on strategies in public health and prevention, sort of to create better opportunities for our young people. You see, we've heard over the last couple of years that young people are the future. We hear so much about young people's involvement is paramount, but also having a healthy young population is also very vital. It's also very needed. And so, how do we work together on sustainable solutions to fight these issues? It's going to be solely reliant upon our ability to sit down together and do research and look at the data, and also engage with the people as well and find out what their needs are. And that's a public health approach. And some of these issues I can go in depth with, we can also look at it. And your second question, what was your second question?
The second question is the cure.
The cure.
Right.
Okay. So the cure now comes in education. The cure comes in, educating folks to be able to make wiser decisions. Now, education is important, but also modeling is good, because studies have shown that education without modeling is just, it doesn't work effectively. So along with telling our young people not to litter, we have to show them the importance. How does it relate to the climate? How does it relate to our surroundings? How does it relate to diseases? So that now develops what's called behavioral change. Another way of curing some of these societies through promotion, through getting out there, getting the message out there, doing campaigns, raising awareness. That's one of the things I think that effectively we can work together and ensure that gets done.
How did you come to be interested in the topic of sustainable youth?
Actually, it's a very interesting question. I was in the Philippines. I was doing a study with a company called International Institute of Rural Reconstruction with some of my colleagues, and we were tackling food security and environmental issues. And so, one of the striking moments I've heard was when I was speaking to one of the community workers, very, very poor community, very depressed community. Some of these images will never come out of my head from that experience. But they were talking about it is not only bringing the resources, but also how do we continue after that? Because sometimes we're very good in public health, in government, in institutions about loving people. And we come and we love them and we give them all the love, we give them all the attention, but then we leave them. And when we leave them, we don't leave them with a solution that they can carry forward. What is it having volunteers every 2 or 3 days pick up garbage in the seawall and so forth? That's a sustainable solution. That's a solution that will continue on. And so sustainability of itself, it's needed for this era. There is now we're moving towards we're moving away from the Millennium Development Goals, which expired this year, and now we're moving to Sustainable Development Goals. And Sustainable Development Goals are ensuring that not only we're fixing the problems, we spent practically a decade or 2 decades realizing what the problems are and realizing what the solutions are. But now it's more about how do we strive on the best practices, the best practice stories, the stories of success, and continue them on. And how do we apply those stories in vulnerable areas, vulnerable communities, vulnerable issues, and make it last for another decade, for another 2 decades and on. So that's the idea I like about sustainability. It promotes longevity. It keeps the ball of change rolling.
When last have you visited Guyana?
About a few weeks
A
ago,
few weeks
3 weeks
ago.
ago. Yeah, I actually moved back to Guyana. I migrated back home to
Oh
Guyana.
wow! Well, congratulations, brother. So
Okay.
what are you seeing there among the youth that A gives you hope, but B
Um,
but B makes you realize that there's work to be done.
Well, the first thing that gives me hope is I've had the opportunity recently to travel to most regions of the country and meet with young people who are interested about their health and interested about promoting the health of others, in relations to sexual transmitted diseases. And what gives me great hope is the yearning for knowledge. I think more than ever, I think that there is a group of young people, they want to have the knowledge. The young people kind of want to know. They want to know how they can be involved. They want to know how they can be involved in the social issues. They want to be how they can be involved in economic issues because many of them are without jobs. They're without hope. They're struggling to see their future. And they want to know how can government, how can partners working together, both public and both private, be able to help them in that area. And it gives optimism to see the spirit of Guyana is still alive. We're still a country of hospitable, proud, educated, very invigorative minds. A lot of smart young people in Guyana, are gonna be world changers. Are gonna do the right things. Are gonna make a way for a better future, and that gives me a lot of hope. And the part of it is that for a number of years, I used to think that pretty much myself and a few other of my friends were the only ones, thinking like this and want this. But coming back home just warms my heart to know that there is at least another 1,000, 2,000 young people in our country who, are going to set our future apart. Um, and the other part of it is the issues of themselves. But more than ever, we're seeing higher rates of diseases, sexually transmitted diseases. We're seeing higher rates of abuse. We're seeing higher rates of drug abuse, domestic violence. And these are issues that we have to, suicide among the young people is a very, very appalling sight. It's very, unfortunate situation. And so it requires some of us actually putting some of that prevention, that cure, the willingness to see sustainability, sustainable change.
Why you believe that greater empowerment and involvement with all aspects of society are critical to achieving sustainable youth development?
I think for me, as a public health professional, I think that we talk a lot about social determinants of health, and so we talk about what are some of the social issues that we need to tackle, and how do we maximize on them. But recently, I've sort of packaged it into three things: social, political, and economic. And the number one agenda for any youth in Guyana right now is, how do I make a living? How do I live? How do I be the future person I want to be? How do I be that future doctor, that future nurse? How do I make money for my family? How do I, have plans to get married to my girlfriend, or how do I make a decent living so I can be comfortable? And so we need to look at the economic issues of creating jobs, of economical development. With economical development, I think one of the biggest things is to create what's called equitable distribution. Sustainable development is the end goal, but the driver towards sustainable development among our young people is actually equitable growth. When I mean equitable growth, I mean a young person in Kanji, an Indian descent, and a young person in Albaistam, of an African descent, Afro-Guyanese. both of them in two different areas, driven by two different economies, driven by two different ways of life. But at the end of the day, they all get part of the the goal of national development. They all get part of the pie. They all can live great lives for themselves, for their families and their children, and so forth. The second point is the social issues, social determinants of change, which is would be things like our healthcare system. You know, we're spending a lot of money on our healthcare system, but still we're still seeing higher than ever maternal child health and death rates, maternal deaths, childhood deaths. We're seeing a lot of ineffective ways, and so some of these things call for not just pumping resources, but also health system strengthening. So how do we create a system from the start to the end? And the whole idea is integration. So we work better, we become more efficient in our health systems. We not only are training nurses, but from the beginning, when a nurse walks through the door as a young prospective nurse to the time where she graduates and she's integrated into the floor, and even past that, as becoming a manager, RN, a supervisor, vice president, RN in a hospital. How do we create that system, that forward movement up? Because that's how we're really going to create change. And then the last one is political involvement. As we've known that over the years, we've not seen many of our young people involved in politics. We've not seen them. There's been this thing where young people has been silent majority, and I think that now more than ever that's changing, and which is a good thing. And so we need to move now from them being the silent majority to them being the active majority, active in the political issues, because all of these issues that we're talking about is revolving around politics, is revolving around a better way of life for them. And sometimes people may want us to think that politics is a bad thing, but if we look throughout history, politics actually comes from the word politique, which means to be civilized. And so everything is politics. The moment we walk outside, we're wearing clothes, we're driving a car, whatever, we're working a job, we're dealing with something to make society more civilized. Now, the biggest goal here is to get our young people into that to that sphere, get them actively involved with a national youth policy, with more representation at different levels in councils and in ministries and in different levels. And so the three of these things combined together, I feel, are the three issues that our young people on a macro level, we need to focus more into these areas and promote sustainable growth within.
Let's go to the micro level. You're among a lot of young people, and you believe that it is important to move from the silent majority to the active majority on a one-on-one basis or in a very small group. What are you hearing what are you hearing from these young people make you believe that perhaps that has already started, that movement, that paradigm shift into the active majority?
Well, if you've been following mostly the campaign, the elections, on both sides, we're seeing a lot of young people are coming together, whether they're of one view, whether they're from one side or one party, or they're on the other side of the party. More than ever, a lot of young people are becoming more involved into the political system, which is not a bad thing, which is exactly what I envision for our country. My vision goes forward in those areas and in the three areas that I'm looking at. So we're seeing greater participation, we're seeing greater involvement. If you're looking at at one of the most dominant, or one of the most greatest political movements right now among our young people is the Ghana National Youth Council, Vote Like a Boss. They're promoting voting, not particularly that I am affiliated with one party, and I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say from that point of view on this show. But what I would say is that together, collectively, because at the end of the day, our goal is to make Guyana win. And the politics mostly will follow among which person, which entity, which party can make Guyana win. Now we're seeing good success in having young people coming out to vote. I mean, 68% of them are going to be voting. That's exciting. That means that more than 1/3, actually 2/3 of our population or our elections is going to be decided by people like myself, and that's great. That's exciting because
Colin,
this is where the future gets to decide what their future is about.
Colin, what do you say? I was going to ask you what is your message to young people, but let me put it a different way.
Hmm.
What do you say to a group of young men in a room that are despondent, that are doubtful of tomorrow, doubtful of the rhetoric that they're hearing from both sides, and are ambivalent, well, ambivalent about voting? Some of them just don't want to vote. What do you say to this group of people to inspire them, or at least to encourage them?
Yeah, I'd like to say, and I'd like to actually, to take this time to say to our young people that regardless of which party we're going to be voting for, we must understand that the greater thing, the greater result, the greater vision is the vision that we are contributing to, that our foreparents, that our forefathers who started our country has successfully able to get accomplished now. You know, back in the days to now, we're seeing a great paradigm shift. The shift is greater now where we have our young people more than ever active in democracy, active in the involvement, active in the affairs, the betterment, the greater good of humanity. And I think that this is exciting of itself. And I think that regardless of which side you pick, when it comes to May 11th, the fundamental question that one must ask is, have I done something to make my country better? You know, famous line, past American President John F. Kennedy said, ask not what you can do for your country, but ask not what a country can do for you, but ask more of what you can do for your country. And so I feel that they have the ability, you have the ability. You know, the girl I spoke to in the Chinese restaurant, the young man I spoke to at the Stelling, at Prika Stelling, the younger woman I spoke to in Linden. These are all three stories of young people who want to be involved, want to have their say. And more than ever, they have that mechanism, they have that ability that for so many years has been sort of not being fully access to us. We've not even been full access. And now more than ever, we have that great access. And the only way we can fight some of the issues of our past and all the issues that we face presently now is to fight it with the ballot. And so I want to draw from another American president who, 1801, who said that when a country, when a people is afraid of a country, it's tyranny. But when a country is afraid of a people, it's liberty. That's Thomas Jefferson. And so what Thomas Jefferson was saying there is we need to get to a society where we have people are able to freely exercise their political orientation, freely to exercise their cultures, their race, their creed. And I think that's one of the great things that define us as a country. You know, I was talking to someone just a few days ago. More than ever, we've always seen greater religious harmony among all our different religions in Guyana. And that's something we can use to move forward. And that's something that every single young Guyanese can relate to. They can relate to celebrating Christmas. Every single young Guyanese can relate to. They can relate to celebrating Christmas if they're a Hindu, or they can relate to celebrating Pagua if they're a Muslim. And so that's something that builds us as a country and keeps us together. And more than ever, remember one thing that we're doing: we're voting for Guyana.
I am curious about something, Colin. What was your introduction to politics, and when did you actually decide to get involved?
Um, well, informally, I've been around the political circle since 2007. I think my first major political speech that I've made was at a youth conference sponsored by the Alliance for Change, where we were developing what's called the Youth for Change. That's the youth arm of the party, and I was more than happy, more privileged to be one of the speakers, and I spoke about towards a better democracy. And so it comes back to in empowering our youths, having them involved in different areas of society. And I remember I was sweating, Selwyn, I was sweating bullets. I remember I was standing up there. It was about 300 young people from all over Guyana. And I was making a presentation for the first time in my life to inspire young people. And man, they had to bring a towel to wipe my face.
What is different today as you address young people?
What is different today for me is it's the confidence. I think I've have a great support group in my family and my friends who are there. They're cheering for me. You know, there are a great number of people who are very also appreciative of our efforts. And I really and truly appreciate these people. I appreciate the whole country of Guyana and their appreciation towards me in helping it. And this makes it easier for me. It makes it easier to get out and highlight these issues and come up with solutions and fight these issues. And I'll tell you something, so and I'll never stop fighting for our young people, because you know this is something what we need. This is what we need to move forward our country. And if someone doesn't stand up, then you know I'll tell you, at least I will be the one standing there for them. They
Awesome.
need somebody to be a champion in their corner.
Colin, you are the recipient of the Willard and Irene Humphall Volunteer Youth Group Service and the Push Guyana CDC Service Awards.
Yeah.
How did these awards speak to you personally?
Well, for Willard and Irene Umful, I this award that I got was my involvement in mentoring young people in Southern California. I actually developed a mentorship program under the auspices of Loma Linda University, where I was studying at that time. And just to have multi-ethnic young people come together, and every single time I had these young people in the room with healthcare professionals like myself, future doctors, future physical therapists, future dentists, pharmacists, and so forth, talking to them. You know, there are times where I actually walked out and shed a tear, because it's not about me, but just a tremendous opportunity that some of these young people would have been through so much in their lives, and knowing their backgrounds and knowing their struggles and seeing them now wanting to empower themselves, that speaks to me in numerous volumes, and it speaks to me as my responsibility of continuing the strive and the growth to have people being empowered. You know, it's not about ourselves. You know, a lot of the things in politics and our involvement, we leave ourselves at the door, we leave ourselves at a window, and we put something greater than ourselves in there. And for Push CDC, the award, that award really was my first introduction into working in the field of HIV and working in the field of public health and prevention. And that told me that this is not the end. You know, we can achieve universal and optimal health. Also, last year I received, which was even more welcoming, the Young Alumnus of the Year, the first ever award given by my alma mater, Washington Adventist. Recently, I just had one of my colleagues receive the second award. But just to stand in the room with alumni as well from the 1960s and 1970s, and stand on grounds that we couldn't stand for years. You know, just imagine the first Young Alumnus of the Year looked like me, and one of the old alumni from the 1950s came up to me and said, history, history is in progress. It's making its way, and just to be part of that, I don't really look for awards, but just to see my journey and how it has impacted people and how they really, really wanted me to enjoy that moment. It speaks a lot.
You know, with what you do with young people and youth empowerment and youth development and so on, it's hard to imagine you not having vision and imagination. So I'm going to tap into that and ask you this question. When you think
Right.
of a transformed Guyana, a new Guyana,
Hmm.
where young, well, don't let me give you no answers. But when you think of a transformed and new Guyana, what comes to mind?
Um, a transformed Guyana for me means that a majority of our young people are the driving force of our economy, an economy that is diversified, that not only traditional sectors like the rice, sugar, or mining industry, but also young people who have great talents in arts and have great talents in non-traditional industries, and that's driven. For me, a young and envisioned Guyana means that it means that our not only our young people but the whole of our country gets access to these social programs, health, universal health care, which means universal access to sexual reproductive services for women, greater education about empowerment for men, reduce unwanted pregnancies. Also, when we're talking about politics, I think Guyana would be so happy to see, after maybe 20 or 30 years, to have a young president, a young president who's running for office, somewhere along the lines of between 30 and 40 years old. And that's going to be one of the remarkable moments where not only the young people are taking hold, but also the young people as well are taking care of those other or the other group of people, which is our elderly, our parents, our grandparents. How do we address the issues of pensions and things like that? Because I didn't arrive here alone, Selvin. You didn't arrive here alone, but also we have to think about how do we also empower, how do we also tend to some of the issues for our foreparents and for our generation to come. So my view on Guyana is a holistic view. It's a view where our young people take the reins. They are the future of a service led of an economy, economic development of a developed country where Guyana is no longer be classed as a developed country, but a developing country, but a developed country, where we have systems in place and everything is running just really optimal, smooth.
What drives you, Colin?
Um, what drives me more than ever is when I wake up in the morning, I think about what I'm going to do today or what I'm going to do in the future that is going to make an impact in humanity. I think more than ever when I've said this a few. I think more than ever I've said this a few times. That when I die, I want people to say that Colin has tried his utmost best in whatever he's done, whether it's youth empowerment, whether it's public health, whatever he's done, he tried to make a difference in people's lives. And that's all I want to know. That's all. At the end of the day, I remember drawing from a speech that Brian Lara said when he retired from cricket. His last farewell speech, he said, "Have I entertained?" I'm not saying that I'll be entertaining people, but I just want to know, have I served? Have I made a difference in humanity? And that's my driving force, to make that difference. And along the way, there have been people, friends, there have been family, tremendous support, and there've been situations that have given me that hope. And so that's what keeps me going, keeps the wheels turning.
Colin, what's next for you? Colin, what's next for you?
Um, that's a very tough question to ask. Well, one of the things I want to continue doing is my involvement with young people. I really want. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve fully in the health sector of my country, or at a higher level, whether it's internationally. But to serve in the health sector of my country is one of my biggest dreams and accomplishment. I've had that opportunity in little spurts, but I'm looking for a real full-time engagement. Also, I want to also continue to gain more knowledge in the field of policy and economic development. And so I'll think about doing my doctorate in public health.
I'm confident that you're going to accomplish everything you set out to accomplish. But Collin, I want to thank you very much for taking the time off to spend with us and to share your views in sustainable youth development and continue doing the good works. Our country needs you, needs our youth. And again, together we'll make Guyana a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Selena. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for to our listeners, and thanks to everybody. Thanks to our country, and God bless our country, and God bless everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.